Hi, Dan here. Hope you're doing well. Now, I reckon that technique is really important for bass players of any level to concentrate on, but especially if you're a beginner, intermediate player, or you've come back to bass after a long time away. If you have good technique, you can play freely without any problems, without any frustrations. You can sound good, and that builds momentum, which is great for you. So I'm going to give you 10 tips right now that you can use straight away. The first tip is to have one finger in the future. Now, this is what I mean. I'm going to play a little groove. So, the first note I'm playing is a G, 3rd fret of the E string, and then I'm going 2 frets up, 2 strings down to play the octave. My first finger is fretting the 3rd fret of the E string, and now this is what I mean. My little finger is already hovering over the next G, the 5th fret of the D string, even before I need to play it. Exactly the same with my plucking hand. I'm plucking with my index first, but look how the longer middle finger is already over the D string, ready to pluck before I need it. And then as I'm playing that note, your index finger should come, because we're alternating here, should come immediately down from the E to the D string. And immediately after I finish fretting that original low G, that's on its way, all ready to be there. Now it's just these little tiny micro movements that's gonna mean that you can play fast, you can play accurately, you can play with speed, and that's just having this one finger in the future idea. So make sure you're really looking at both hands, not just this one, by the way. Lots of people look at this hand. Make sure you've got both hands doing that, really for whatever technique you're doing. There's only really one rule when it comes to technique as far as I'm concerned, and that's just to make sure that your hands are in the correct mechanics, the correct positions to play the technique correctly, but this is the important bit, without any pain or strains now or in the future. That's really important. But in terms of what fingers that you use, what fingering patterns that you use, there are lots of different ways, but I'm just going to show you a couple of systems here. These aren't rules, these are just ways that you can play. But to be honest, most of the times bass players do break these. But let me show you anyway. So we've got one finger per fret. And that's where, let's, for example, put first finger on the 5th fret of the E string. And then you line the other fingers up. So we've got the first finger on the 5th fret, second finger on the 6th, third on the 7th, and little finger on the 8th fret. Notice I've got these sort of like V gaps between the fingers here. That allows you to get that stretch. But you don't have to keep all fingers placed down and this stretch going. Keep your wrist straight, and for example, if I play just an A natural minor scale, doing that one finger in the future thing, I'm using fingers 1, 3, 4 on frets 5, 7, 8. That's happening on the E and the A string. Then I'm doing first finger, third finger on the D string. Many bass players don't use the little finger, and if you think about it, that reduces your efficiency by 25%. So use that little finger, and that's one finger per fret. There's another system called extended finger. The one finger per fret covers 4 frets. You've got 4 fingers covering 4 frets. But at the end here, I don't know if you saw, I'm just stretching out. So that was fret 5, 7, and 9 with fingers 1, 2, and 4 on the D string and the G string. Notice that gives you 3 notes per string. It's good for hammer-ons, legato, which is just hammer-ons and pull-offs, and slides and things like that. So that makes you play in a slightly different way. One finger per fret would say that if you're fretting on the 1st fret of the E string, that you should use your 3rd finger your 3rd finger for the 3rd fret. But actually many bass players would use their 4th finger for that. It reduces the stretch between the fingers. Plus, when I was playing an octave before, I was using my 1st and little finger, not the 3rd finger. It reduces the stretch, it just makes things easier, and it's just an example of how this one finger per fret and extended system is not used all the time, you know. I'll use the 1st finger just with hand shifts. You can use extended fingering, one finger per fret, or just shifting around, playing with whatever fingers feel comfortable. That will cover nearly every situation that you'll find yourself in. I'm not a big fan of the fingers versus slap versus plectrum debate. I think you should use them all, to be honest with you. If you want to be a professional musician or play in covers bands, then you're going to need to create a lot of different tones and cover a lot of different genres. And to be able to have those 3 techniques under your fingers will allow you to do that. Plus, it's just great fun. And if you're a big fan of bass playing, it just gives you access to everything from rock to funk and everything in between. So I'm just going to show you just 3 ways that I might just play over a simple groove, which you can download. I'll put that on my website, just using the different techniques. Think about acquiring a new technique very much like a process. So it starts off without you knowing anything, with it being frustrating, with it being difficult, but it's just unfamiliar. When it becomes more and more familiar, it gets a lot easier. So take everything slowly as you go. Treat the first phase as just exploration. You get your hands on your bass, figure out what you have to do. It's all about, at this point, getting the mechanics, getting the coordination between your hands. That can only come when you slow things down and you're really, really patient. That's something you have to learn. Make sure that you're looking at both hands and that all the fingers, hands, wrists, everything is in the correct position. And it'll take you a while to get the new technique in, but you have to go slowly. It's all about getting the neural connections in your brain working without inadvertently getting any mistakes in your playing. That's the key to it. So that happens by going really, really slowly. And then over the days, over the weeks, once you get the new technique under your fingers and you start to get a bit more comfortable with it, that's when you can start to increase the speed and accuracy. Once you feel you have got the mechanics down, that's the point where you can start to practice with a metronome or a drum beat. There's nothing worse than hearing bass playing or any kind of music being played that's out of time. So that really comes by focusing on time. Your groove is probably one of the most important things that you can work on. And technique plus timing equals groove. And you work on that with a metronome and a drum or drum loops or a really great drummer. But it's something that you focus on, okay? So I've got loads of metronome exercises and also loads of free drum beats. Again, go to onlinebasscourses.com, put a link below, and I've got loads of free drum loops that you can practice along to. But being really aware that timing is very important. It is going to help you. So whenever you're working on anything with technique, what I was talking about with that process, work on that first, really get things at a basic level going, and then start to introduce your metronome and your drum beat, and that's really going to help you. You can also use it just to push the boundaries ever so slightly of your speed. Whatever tempo you can work at, just go with that. Don't try to do too much. And once you've got something like, I don't know, get a really simple groove, then put it at a certain metronome tempo, and then just go up incrementally, you know, a few BPM at a time. When you get to the point where it feels like it's kind of it's unraveling a little bit, then that's your new tempo that you want to aim for. Just edge back a little bit below that to try and find something that's comfortable. And that's how you're going to just get speed going, is to have an external time source going, because anything you need to play on the bass, it needs to be precise, it needs to be accurate, it needs to be in time. I like the next tip so much that I wrote an entire book on this. It's musical technique exercises. My book's called Creative Bass Technique Exercises. Very catchy title there, but it does exactly what it says. And I'm going to show you one example from the book now. I just think when you're working on technique, the whole premise of this book is just to work on a few other things as you go. So whether that's timing or modes or actually playing bass lines, to incorporate some other musical devices into your technique playing is a really good idea. Before I get into that exercise, instead of playing a scale up and down, play a different rhythm and change the order of the notes. Okay, so it just sounds a little bit more exciting and a little bit more musical. But I'm going to show you this exercise now. The idea behind this exercise is to go up the modes of G major scale, playing the scale going up and the pentatonic going down. So I'll show you the exercise now, and I'll show you the idea behind it later. So that's a good exercise because it's teaching you the modes and the chords and the arpeggios that lay on each degree of the scale. So you can actually make bass lines from that. I'm just going from the 1 to the 4 chord there, playing the notes that I was playing in that exercise, connecting things up using the scale. And if you learn a musical exercise such as that, it starts to open up musical ideas for bass lines rather than it just being a cold scale you're just using to make your fingers get quicker. It does that as well, but it also kills a few other musical birds with one stone. This one comes from over 15 years of teaching, where a lot of times I would see students holding the bass a little bit like this. So if you imagine that the chair is just completely flat against the wall and the bass is parallel to that chair, and you can already see this is a very awkward position. My elbow is sort of running into my body here and I can't really get anywhere past the 5th fret naturally. So to hold the bass properly, that's kind of where it all starts. Maybe there should have been tip 1, but it's not. So what I'm doing here is I'm just moving the bass out, so it's now sort of 45-degree angle between the back of the chair, and there's the neck going that way. It's also pointing upwards a little bit. I've got my leg here, the cutaway on the leg. I've got the top horn here resting against my chest, and I've got this part of my wrist on the top here. That's 3 points. I do not need to secure the bass at all with my fretting hand. That needs to do everything it needs to do. The common thing is to see the neck being grabbed to hold the bass in place. So if you have it held properly like that, you can obviously use a strap as well or stand up. You've got roughly the same playing position. Now, I can just move my hand across here and I've got complete access to the top of the neck if I needed it. Whereas if I'm here, everything's all a bit awkward. So make sure you spend a lot of time working out the best way to make this bass feel like an extension of your body. And that comes from holding it properly and feeling really comfortable with it. Look, it's not going anywhere as well. Some basses are neck heavy, but just angle it so that it is just completely comfortable in your hands. A band I really loved when I was growing up was Faith No More. But to be honest with you, I didn't pay a huge amount of attention to Bill Gould at the time. I was more into sort of technical players and prog rock and jazz or whatever, but I absolutely love his playing and I've just revisited it recently. I'm going to contradict a little bit of his playing style now by saying not to play too hard. Now, Bill Gould, he absolutely attacks the strings and that's where he gets his tone. It's fantastic. And if that's what you're going for, then great. But be able to play the bass with not too hard a touch. Now, what I mean by that is if you fret, for example, a C, 3rd fret A string. If I go really too light, you'll get a buzz, or if I fret anywhere across from that 3rd, close to the 2nd fret, you get a horrible buzz. But if you fret properly, you really don't need to press down very hard until you get a good tone. I do not need to press any harder than that. I'll start to get strains, okay? And if I'm plucking, sure, yeah, sometimes you might want to dig in a bit more, but just pressing down too hard, fretting too hard and plucking too hard, you choke the bass and you can accidentally bring it out of tune as well. So listen, if you look at Geddy Lee, if you look at the YouTube videos of him playing, he plays it hard, but at the same time he has quite an agile, light touch. So think about that. Think about touch. Don't play too hard. Don't choke the instrument. Have the ability to step on the accelerator and play passages hard if you want, but generally it's gonna wear you down a lot less, and the bass is gonna sound better if you play with a lighter touch. When I was playing the pick, slap, fingerstyle examples, I was using loads of articulations. Articulations bring flair and life to your playing, and you really want to learn them. They're your hammer-ons, pull-offs, bends, slide, vibrato, that kind of thing. So one good thing to practice is a simple minor pentatonic scale. I'll take G. Know them in different locations. There at the end there, I did a hammer on. That's a hammer on. Pull off is the opposite, where you flick the string down to the ground. Vibrato, wave the string up and down a bit. That's a bend. Slide. Ghost note. I'm playing in a funk style, and articulations are everywhere in funk music, and the bass is really up front. The bass was the star of the show. That's why a lot of bass players like that style of music. So very appropriate for that. Other styles of music, maybe putting in too many articulations wouldn't be appropriate, but they do sound amazing. You can play fast. I was just plucking once and just doing a hammer-on. 2 hammer-ons, then 2 pull-offs in the reverse direction. You can let your fretting hand do a lot more of the work with these articulations. Right, the last tip is about how to put this all together and to make it into reality. I get so many questions about, how to improve technique or bass playing in general, and sometimes it really just comes down to sorting out your practice routine, actually committing to it, making sure you do some practice consistently. It's better to do 10 minutes every day than it is to do half an hour once a week, And I've taught loads of students in my time that they love the idea of being good at bass, but they don't put in the necessary hours that you need to get good. Okay, so a bit of a wake-up call, but really just get a practice routine together. And this tip is all about just making technical advancement an actual sort of planned part of your practice routine. I'd put it at the beginning. Work on it as like a warm-up, whatever it is. If you're working on, for example, I've got a pick here. If you're working on picking, do that thing I was talking about where you're getting things together. So I remember using a plectrum for me was extremely alien, having started on classical guitar, then bass, always using my fingers. So work out how to hold it. One thing with picking, using a plectrum, is that you realize that you don't want to do a downstroke too far. You want small movement. If you're doing down, up, which is alternating. So I may, to go through that, I may just really, really slowly just work this out. Work out some technical exercises or go through a book or a course or what have you, and just get that together. But that's at the beginning of the practice routine. I'm focusing on that before learning tunes or improvising or whatever else you're doing. Make technique the beginning bit. Do up to you. Whatever time you have is the time you have. But if you don't have much time to practice, I would definitely work on technique as a priority, because, as I said at the beginning, once this thing becomes easy, it becomes more enjoyable. And conversely, if you're struggling with the bass in any way, it's going to really hinder you and you're going to get frustrated and you might give up. Okay, so prioritize technique. If you can do 10 minutes every day, you will see benefits within no time at all. So this all comes down to how committed you are. And I'm sure since you're watching this video, and if you've got this far, well done, you're serious about it. So get into the practice shed tomorrow and work on some of these ideas. So I'm going to stop there. Thanks very much for watching. I've been doing a few of these 10 tips videos on fretboard knowledge, groove theory, and I'm going to be doing a few more, but I've got hundreds of lessons, loads of other lessons. And, you know, if you've got any questions about this or you want to see anything else, then leave a comment below and let me know. But I'm doing 2 videos at least every week now. I'm really trying to grow the channel. So if you could subscribe, that would be amazing. And if you do, as I say, want anything, just get in contact. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.